This is a pre-trip on 825. Before we lift up this cab, we're going to move those booms out of the way. If you don't move these booms, you're going to end up breaking the windshield, and then your boss isn't going to be too happy with you. So you move this cotter pin that's down here, and then you just pull this pin out, and put them both where you're not going to lose them. Then you're going to slide this boom, the top boom, all the way out. So you're going to twist these bolts, and this thing should just slide out of the way, like so. Then you're going to grab this whole thing. You might have to pick up on it a little bit. Oh, they bungee corded it, so now I got to unbungee cord it. That's why it wouldn't come out. And then it should just pull out of the way. Keep it at a 90, so that way you have the best chance of not breaking that windshield. If you come along to the back, actually, it's easier to lift up the cab with the doors open. So I'm going to open both doors, and then we're going to lift the cab up. If you notice on this side, you're going to see a series of 3 levers. 1, 2, 3. So this first lever, you're going to put your hand through this hole. You're going to pull this one towards you. At the same time, you're going to take your other hand and lift this one up. So let's see if I can set this thing down. Make it a little bit easier. Okay, so I'm taking my hand, pulling this out, and pulling this one up. Now if you notice, this third handle here, that kind of came out with it. I don't want that to yet because I want to show you. I'm going to hold the cab here, then I'm going to pull this lever out towards me so I can gently lift the cab up. Now that the cab is up, I'm going to make sure that knee doesn't knock itself out of place. To do that, there's a pin dangling right here. It's supposed to be in that holder right there. I'm just going to stick this thing in the hole, and then that is going to prevent the knee from knocking out of place and the cab coming down. First thing I notice when I'm in here are the tires. You're going to check your tires, make sure it's got air in it. Check out your lug nuts, make sure all of those are tight. Take a peek inside of there. Make sure your rotors are nice and smooth. It looks a little bit rusty, but it's not really wavy. That's a good sign. Then you're going to check your tread by sticking your finger in the tire. These are fairly new tires, so as long as it comes almost halfway up your fingertip, you're good. Take a look at your shock. Make sure you don't see any oil dripping down the bottom part of your shocks. Check your steering linkages. Make sure all of those are tight and ready to go. And then check your leaf springs. Make sure none of those are cracked or damaged. That's not good if they are. And then finally, you're going to look behind the tire towards the ground and the inner rim. You're checking that part to see if there's any oil dripping down. If there is, it means you have a bad axle seal, and that's got to get replaced. If you look in between the fan and the motor, you're going to see a belt in there. That's that guy right there. You're looking to see if that thing is frayed, damaged, worn out, or hanging off one of the pulleys. You can also see it from the other side. That's important to check, just because that thing can do a lot of damage if it comes off. This right here is your, see if I can get this cab off. Holy crap. Oh. There we go. Here's your transmission fluid reservoir. It says automatic transmission fluid. This only takes Isuzu transmission fluid only. Make sure that level's in between max and min. Right below it is your fuse box. Make sure that cover stays on there. That's important. Right in front of you, at this little white sticker, is going to be your oil dipstick. It's even kind of labeled. And then directly behind the motor, towards the job box, is your transmission fluid dipstick. That's labeled too. The oil you check while the engine is off and cold, which means you haven't started it yet. So technically we're gonna check that right now. Whoop, almost fell. So if you can't break it free at first, give it a little bit of twist, then it should pull right out. You're gonna wipe it off the first time. Stick it back in until it's flushed. Pull it back out. And now you're looking for your oil level. If you notice this oil is really dark, that's because it's a diesel and it hasn't been changed yet. But it's right about where we want it to. If I wipe this off, you're gonna notice 2 punctures. That's where you want it. It's a little bit higher because I just ran this thing to pull it inside, so it wasn't exactly cold, but I'm sure it would be closer to this inner dot if it was, but it's a good sign if you see it come up that far. Make sure you wipe it off before you put it back in, because you don't want any debris in your engine. The transmission fluid you want to check while the engine is on and running, and has been running for a little while. I had this thing running recently for maybe a half an hour, so I'm expecting that to be in the hot zone. I'm also not going to start it right now because you won't be able to hear me with that fan, so I'll show you where it's supposed to be at if it's not. So once again, you pull it out, wipe it off, and then you're going to stick it back in until it's flush. Pull it back out. And now you're looking for your transmission level. You probably can't see it down there. So you can see you're going to look for red fluid, and that is right about there, which is good because on one of these this side you're going to see H and you're going to see a C. That means hot and cold, whether or not your transmission is hot or cold. But right here in the H zone is where you want your fluid to be. Always make sure you put back on whatever covers you take off. A lot of these just pop on and off. And make sure you don't leave anything in the engine bay, because once this thing closes, you might break it. Or it'll burn out because the motor is really hot. If you come over to the passenger side, you're going to find another tire you have to check, all the suspension, once again, your lug nuts, all that good stuff. Right here is your power steering reservoir. Make sure it's in between max and min. The one right below it, that white container, that is your coolant level. Once again, max and min, it's got to be full. And then right behind it is your washer fluid. Make sure this thing's always topped off. It's a violation if you don't, believe it or not. Your batteries are located directly behind your passenger side seat down by the ground. Make sure that thing has a battery cover on it. Right now it doesn't. It needs to have one on it, so if it doesn't have one when you get this truck, make sure you bring it up to a supervisor. Coming down the back side of the passenger side, just to the right of your wheel well, you're going to see the fire extinguisher. Make sure that yellow needle is in the green and that pin is in the handle. That's how you know this thing's ready to go. On the top of your fender, on the rear dualies, you're going to see the PSI rating. That's if you have a flat tire or a low tire. That's the PSI you're going to brace it up to. Kind of the same concept as the front. You're checking your treads, making sure it comes halfway up your fingertip, checking your lug nuts, The rotor's a little bit harder to see because it's behind two tires. Make sure your tires aren't touching your fender, especially when this tank is full. This thing gets pretty heavy. If you can't stick your hand in between the fender and the tires and you can't move it around a little bit, that means you blow out your shocks. That's a good way to blow out your tires too. It happened to me. Your mud flap, make sure it's not dangling on the ground or too high up, close to the, I don't know, bed, I guess. That prevents anything from flying out behind you and hitting other cars. Your leaf springs are located behind your dualies on each side. Make sure those aren't cracked or damaged. You're going to look behind the two tires, make sure you don't see any rocks in there or anything like that. And then you're going to look behind the inner dually to make sure you don't see any oil dripping down the inside of that tire. So now that I'm passing these doors, I'm going to shut them. It's easier to put the cab down with the doors shut. Is in the doors. So, you know, using them to your advantage is easier. To let the cab down, I'm basically going to do everything in reverse. I'm going to pull this pin out, stick it back in its holder where it should have been in the first place. And then with both hands, I'm going to push this lever in. I'm holding the cab up here so it doesn't come slamming down. Then as best I can, I'm going to gently let this thing down so it doesn't come slamming down and possibly breaking something. There's really no need to slam these things down anyway, because as long as this thing comes down hard enough for this little mechanism to go through the hole, you're good to go anyway. And then just make sure that this lever gets lashed. It needs a little bit of lube and a little bit of love, so that's why that thing's not going automatically in place. Then to make sure your cab is locked, this is the lockdown. You're just going to push that lever all the way down, and then you should be able to pull up on this cab as much as you want, and it's not going anywhere. If you come inside, you should find your seatbelt. As this thing right here, please wear it. Make sure you check it out, plug it in, or buckle it in. Make sure it doesn't unbuckle on you. In here, on your door jamb, you'll also find your GVWR. This thing's 19,500 pounds. You should also find your driver's log. It looks a little something like this. This is the checklist we're going through, and that's what we're talking about. This is the reason why we're doing this. Behind one of your seats, you should find triangles. It might be in the passenger side. So we'll jump in here real quick. And they are not in here anymore, so I'm assuming that they will get put in here this winter. If they are not in here, please tell your supervisor. But normally they stick them behind the bench seat on the passenger side. If you look right in front of you, there's your gauges and your dash. When you turn your truck on, make sure everything seems to be working properly. I'm only going to turn the accessories on because you won't be able to hear me otherwise. The shop kind of echoes a bit. On your left joystick, you're going to find your parking lights and your headlights. This stick also controls your high beams. If you push it away from you, your high beams come on. Pull it towards you, they go off. We're going to leave our low beams on for now so we can check those first. Coming over to the left or the right joystick, you're going to find your wiper speed controls. That controls how fast your wipers go. This button on the end controls the washer fluid coming out. It's barely working. I'm sure it'll work better if the truck was on. On your dash, you'll see your heater and defrost settings. Make sure all of these work. And then just above that, right under your CB radio, you're going to find your height. That's how tall this vehicle is, so make sure you're paying attention to the roads you're driving down. Turning your CB radio on, make sure it's on channel 2. That's the channel that we use to talk to our coworkers. And then finally, press this button. You got to hold this thing up pretty close to you for them to hear you, but make sure that the people you're working with can hear you. Right next to your CB radio is your Aeroboard controller. There's a switch right here that says on and off, and that tells you if this thing's on or low voltage. Ignore that because I only have my accessories on. And then this lever, this little dial right here tells you what should be showing on the Aeroboard. I believe that is the double arrow. We're gonna find out one way or another. When you're working with your coworkers and you're checking all your lights, please make sure to go through all of these settings just to make sure that this thing is telling your Aeroboard what you want or what it says it is. So if that thing's showing flat bar, it should be showing flat bar in the back, etc. If it's not, that's a problem. You gotta figure that out. Your beacon switch is located up here on your console, up in the top right. We're gonna flip that on so we can check our beacons. And our 4-ways are located under here, like right under your defrost settings. We're gonna flip those on to check those. While you're sitting in here, take a look at all your glass. Make sure nothing's broken, cracked, or damaged. Check your horn. Make sure that beeps. And I believe that's it for in-cab other than checking the lights. When you're going through reverse and brake, it's always a good idea to have a second person with you. It's never safe to do it by yourself. I did forget one thing. Your parking brake. Your parking brake is located right down on your right side. To engage it, just pull up. To check it, put your foot on the normal brake, put this thing into gear, and then slowly let your foot off the brake. If your truck doesn't move, that means your parking brake works. And then you're going to do everything in the opposite. You're going to put your foot on the brake, put it back in gear. Then you're going to press this button in, pick up a little bit to your click, and let it back down. So we'll get out, walk around, look at lights. I'll show you where everything is and what you're looking for. You got marker lights on the doors. I believe those are also turn signals. You got your turn signal 4-way there and your low beam. Same thing on the other side, turn signal, low beam, and then markers and also turn signals, I believe. Up on the top of your cab, you have headlamps, and you also have a little bar up there that should be blinking. Coming down the back, it's pretty simple. You have your 4-ways, your brake lights in reverse, and your license plate light is right there. You have to make sure that works too. Same thing on the other side. And then all my accessories should be on and they're not, so that's an issue. But make sure all 4 of your beacons are blinking and your Aeroboard shows what you needed to show. If you come past your driver's side towards the back, you're going to find your diesel cap. This is diesel, so don't put gas in this engine, you'll blow it. Make sure your cap is on and tethered and tight and it's not going anywhere. We're going to turn all of our accessories off. Four ways. We'll throw high beams on. Oh, maybe my truck died. Oh, there we go. You have to have your headlights on to turn your high beams on. Turn all those off. We'll check our high beams. You're also going to go through all of your turn signals, brake and reverse. I cannot say that enough. Just because you don't see me doing it doesn't mean you don't need to do it. I don't have a second person to stand behind my truck and tell me if they work. Plus, it'll make this video just a tad bit shorter. So, if you noticed, we went through all of these, all of our lights, windshield wipers, etc. We checked all of our oils, all of our coolant, all of our fluids, all the exhaust system you check while the vehicle is on and running. We walked around the truck, open and close your doors, make sure they latch. We talk about mud flaps and all this good stuff, unusual sounds you're listening when you're driving. Make sure you have your proper driver's license. This thing just takes a normal license. You don't need a CDL. Your medical card you always need on you, and your proper PPE. Spray vehicle somewhere along the lines of hard hat, safety glasses, gloves, long sleeve shirt, pants, boots, socks, etc. Your toolbox is located in the silver box behind you. It's right behind the cab. Make sure you get a good night's sleep and your brakes are already adjusted. You don't need to worry about that. Once again, this is where you put your weight, and this is where you put your height. Your height is located on the dash, and your weight is located in the door jamb. It's that white sticker on the bottom there. Then this is the box where you put anything wrong with your vehicle, lights out, anything like that, really. And then you get to sign your life away. I hope you have a productive day.